Thanks, Jesse. Welcome again, everyone. My name is Sudeshna Dixit, and I'm the Director of Cultural Connections at EastHUB. My preferred pronoun is she and her. I have shoulder-length dark hair, brown skin, and hazel eyes. I'm wearing a black shirt, and I'm sitting at a desk with a wall behind me that has a collection of knickknacks that I've collected during my travels. I just wanted to give you a very brief introduction about EastHUB. EastHUB is a community development organization that's focused on building an inclusive and diverse arts and cultural infrastructure on the East Side. And one of the things that our team specifically focuses on is bringing forward events around arts and cultural topics that are focused on BIPOC and other marginalized communities. And so this event series is called Culture Creates Community, and it's an ongoing series of free virtual events. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming you all to our April event, Artists with Disabilities, a perspective on accessibility, opportunities, and celebrating talent. As we begin our program, we would like to introduce you to two of our ASL interpreters, Jenna Williamson and Marianne Gutierrez, who you see on the screen right now. They will be working with us today throughout the event. Thank you very much, both of you. To see the interpreters on your screen, please click on the view button on the upper right corner of your screen, and the menu will show you a side-by-side speaker view option. So you can click on the speaker option, and once you click on it, you'll see a frame kind of in the middle of the speaker and the presentation. So you can adjust it left and right to see what fits best for your needs. To turn on closed captioning, please click on the CC button at the bottom of your screen and then click on show subtitle, and that will show you the closed captioning as well. Bernardo, no, that's the same slide, sorry. So we want to come to an agreement, and we respectfully ask that you acknowledge that this is a safe space. We respect all efforts to be aware of accessibility issues, and we do recognize that each of us is at varying levels of this knowledge. We are not here to judge. We are interested in what we can learn. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and we look forward to your participation. Please feel free to raise your hand in the chat, ask a question in the chat, or when it's Q&A time, just speak, and we'll see how the time goes by and do our best to respond to everybody. Bernardo, next slide, please. Before we begin our program, we would like to do EastHUB's land acknowledgement. EastHUB acknowledges that we live and work on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples. That includes, but is not limited to, Snoqualmie, Suquamish, Duwamish, Nisqually, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot tribes. We appreciate and honor the original residents of this land and stand in solidarity with them against long-standing inequities and systemic oppression. We are committed to building enduring relationships and striving together to achieve just, equitable, and impactful change. We do note that this kind of acknowledgement is not a new practice, but it is a traditional custom dating back centuries for many Native American communities and nations. It's a powerful way of showing respect and honoring the indigenous people of the land on which we work and live. And this acknowledgement is a simple way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth. With that being said, I would now like to welcome Nona Dhawan. She's our consensus organizer at EastHUB, and she's spotlighted here on my right. Nona has been instrumental in putting this event together, and I just can't wait for all of you to meet her. So take it away, Nona, and let's start the event. Nona, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Sudeshna. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for attending today's event focusing on artists with disabilities, a perspective on accessibility, opportunities, and celebrating talent. My name is Nona Dhawan. I have been working as a consensus organizer at EastHUB for about a year now. I use the pronouns she, her. A visual description of myself: I'm a South Asian woman with light brown skin, salt and pepper hair. I am currently sitting in my home office. I'm with a bookshelf and a file cabinet behind me. As we begin today, I would like to mention that April is Parkinson's Awareness Month, as well as Autism Awareness Month. Today, we will hear from three artists with disabilities, Rob Diak, Abha Sharma, and King Khazm. We will also hear from Elizabeth Ralston. She's a leader and consultant who herself is disabled and works on accessibility in arts and cultural organizations. We will hear from our guests about the challenges they face and learn how we can support them. After each presentation, there will be a few minutes for questions from the audience. We will conduct a flash poll before Elizabeth's presentation. So to begin, our first speaker today is Rob Diak. He is also the very first person I spoke to as I began working on this event quite some time ago. He was kind enough to give me a virtual tour of his studio. It is amazing. So before we hear from Rob, we're going to play a short video.
Hi, I'm Rob Diak, and I'm a puppeteer with Parkinson's. I've been a puppeteer for 38 years, and I've done shows for the stage, I've done shows for theme parks, makeups, full prosthetic makeups, I've done all kinds of things. The reason I love puppetry is it incorporates all the arts. What is the most ironic thing you could do to a puppeteer? I know, well, take his ability to manipulate things gently and carefully. It's intermittent, so some days it's worse than others. But I've had this medication now for a while, and it seems to be mostly controlling it. Because when I started out, I couldn't even roll my shirt down or tie my shoes. I think I want to give a feeling of hope to people who have a sudden onset of something that changes their lives. That it doesn't mean that your life is over. It means that you have to be adaptive, and I think that that's been my whole career.
Rob?
Hi, Nona. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank
Good.
you.
How are you?
I'm very good. I'm having a good day today.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yes.
We're also very intrigued by your background, by what all you have behind you.
This is a mess. This is my mess. It's a lot of art. It varies from being hoarding when you actually use the materials for art, then it's not hoarding somehow. So. But this is some examples of my work behind me in my studio at the Pike Place Market.
Great, looks great. Well, you have the floor.
Oh, well, thank you. So I'm very happy to be here and to have been asked. And just to give a quick description of me for folks that are visually unable to see all of this charm and wonderfulness going on here. I am 5'2" from the earth, which was I used to be 5'4", but I'm shrinking, which somehow has put me into the obese category in the body mass index, which I think is not fair. I'm balding. That's polite. There's still quite a bit left to go. That's my interpretation, and I'm sticking with it. Basically, I'm from New York City, the Bronx, and I'm 60 years old. But like a fine wine, I'm pitted. So anyway, this is a wonderful opportunity to talk to you folks about accessibility and about being an artist with a disability. I would say it's more of a alternate ability as opposed to a disability. I don't really think of it as that. Parkinson's has been also called a disease. I don't really interpret it as a disease. What's happening is that my brain is not processing or producing dopamine, which means that I've run out of something. So I consider it sort of a lack of something as opposed to a disease per se, and that it is degenerative, but it doesn't really happen right away. So basically, I consider it to be an exercise in learning new steps every day to counter the measures of that the illness puts upon me. The question that most people ask me as an artist has changed because of Parkinson's. The question was once, aren't you tired of being in a profession where you don't make that very much money? Couldn't you find a better type of job? The Parkinson's has now changed that question to, are you going to stick with what you do as an artist? So, because we think that would be terribly wonderful if you could continue to be an artist. So somehow I went from the art form being a kind of a liability or some kind of mental thing to being something that was noble and wonderful. And I'll take that. I'm happy with that. I also find that there is a lot of things that are basically difficulties for artists that are kind of a handicap to artists, but they have nothing to do with Parkinson's. For an example, because of COVID, our inability to stand near each other and our lack of wanting to occupy the same space, art is a form of communication. And I find that when I talk to people, they're surprised I'm not texting them as opposed to speaking to them, particularly in the age gap situation, because I'm 60. If I talk to someone who is 30 or under, the only way that they'll actually speak to me without being unnerved is for me to point out that I'm on Instagram. Then I'm very much okay, like a good uncle or some such. But the thing I was going to get to really quickly was to tell you that Parkinson's, it's exploiting your body, and I don't feel that it deserves an opportunity to be treated politely. I believe in exploiting it back, and it's going to change how people see me and how they refer to me and how they relate to me. So basically, I'm utilizing the mental idea of having a disability as a way of making people look at things in a different way. For an example, I approach all of the Parkinson's kind of questions with a sense of humor. And I do it, for starters, by I have a collection of ironic t-shirts. I have Tremors the movie. I have Shakey's Pizza. I have Jell-O. I have the Cars album, Shake It Up. I have that as a shirt. I have Earthquake the Ride, Universal Studios as a sweatshirt. And what happens is that somebody will be talking to me and they'll ask about my shirt or Shakey's or whatever, and I'll say, and I'll tell them it's because I have Parkinson's, and I just basically, it's a nice way to introduce the subject with people, and it right away puts them at ease because they don't feel that I'm being affected in a way that is negative, and so it puts them. I'm always conscious of the audience because I've been a performer all my life, so this is exactly the same thing. You read the room, you walk in and you tell them, about what's going on, and you wonder what they're going to react to you in that respect. I also am working currently on creating an archive and a sort of a legacy project with the work that I've done over the years. Getting things digitized. I just recently got a big stack of giant 3/4-inch tapes. They're like that, digitized, and I'm editing that stuff down and putting it on YouTube so that people can see the work I did back in 1984 when I still had hair. And finally, I think the main thing is to recognize the connections of irony and the universe. I find that the universe seems to be almost completely and utterly fueled by irony, and for a puppeteer to get Parkinson's is a pretty big fuel for the universe. It's you have spent years learning how to do these things, and then you can't. I basically, one hand works great, and the other hand I'm a one-handed. I'm like it's a strobe. It's not even usable as a puppetry device. But the irony of it is that it's forced me to rethink my remaining career, and I'm looking for apprentices. I'm looking for people to help me write things out, processes and procedures that I've learned. I've got a book that's basically a guide to my space, a little the Whimsatorium book, and it's got like a lot of pictures and things of my my artwork and stories about how what each show is and why I built them and how I built them and so on. And I've just gotten better at social media. I've just completed a film for Heather Henson's Handmade Puppet Dreams on Amazon Prime. It'll be out as soon as they can get it out. But it's based on two characters I've had for years, and they're in the movie. They're retired, and they their work comes up on the internet, and because it's nostalgic, they have a whole new career. Even though they're old, they have a second chance. So I think that's kind of my proposition for this whole thing. The disability, which is a terrible word. It's not really a disability. It's just it changes you. It changes you, and then you have to figure out a way to go forward with that. And that's what I do. And lastly, I make these little pop-up puppets for the Pike Place Market, and I call this a gateway drug to puppetry, because basically you use your thumb and it goes thumbs up. And I like to do old Motown tunes because I got the choreography down. Or if you want to do 80s, you can do the moonwalk. So it's very simple, and I'm just basically planning on just filling the world with as many of these stupid little things as possible, just to get people talking to each other. You know, during the pandemic, everybody had masks on. You couldn't tell if anybody was smiling at you. Even dogs have a tail to wag so that the other dogs know that they're okay. So, you know, this is like a tail wag, right? So, you know, somebody's coming your way, you go like this, and they either smile or they get out of your way. Either way, you win, because, you know, don't know what that person's thinking at that moment. If they can't resist that, you don't need to talk to them. It's okay. So that's my basic presentation as it is. And if there's questions, I'm very happy to answer them.
Yes, please. Thank you, Rob. If there are questions for Rob, the audience, you can either put them in the chat or you can put on your screen. We will try. I think the chat would be the easiest. Okay. I love your pop-up puppets, and I like the way you describe them. The best drug possible. So any questions from the audience?
How often do you get to talk to a puppeteer? Rather, how often are you in the do you have the opportunity to say something unusual to a puppeteer? Because you're not going to throw me.
Yes.
Both barrels. Give it to me.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the largest puppet you've ever made?
Oh, I built a whale for the Fremont Solstice Parade. It was 22 feet. Now, honestly, I wanted it to be 50 feet, but I couldn't raise enough money for the foam to be 50 feet. So I had to bring my thought down a little bit. But the story of that is I had a dream before I left California to move up here to Seattle. I had a dream of this blue whale, cobalt blue, swimming through the playa, this cracked playa, and it was supported by naked blue people, all the same color of the cobalt whale. And it was coming toward me, and I just felt this sense of, like, you know, almost a concern that it was so big. And on the chin of the whale were barnacles that were also blue, and they were in the shape of the faces of sleeping children. And I thought, this is just some kind of a hint to me that there's a big impending change in moving, but it's going to be peaceful. So I built the thing. It was in the Fremont Solstice Parade in 2002, and then I had a 22-foot whale, and I had no idea where to put it. So problem with parade art. So basically, somebody from Burning Man said, we'd like to take the whale to Burning Man. I said, don't burn it, but you have to be naked and blue and take a picture of yourselves out on the playa, because I wanted a photo of my dream. And the night before they were going to do it, the wind came up, and it was made of this lightweight material that, you know, a few people could hold the whole thing up. And what they saw, because the whale was aerodynamic, in the dust storm that ensued, they saw the whale sliding across the playa, and then it hit like a small hill range, and it went up in the air, and they never found it again. And so it came out of the desert, I built it, it went back to the desert, and it's still there somewhere. So that's my whale.
Wow.
Very cool.
So, Rob, there is another question, and someone's asking, Maximo is asking, do you have a website where we can buy your pop-up puppets?
Thank you, Maximo. I must admit, I've loaded the audience. That's
good.
He's one of mine. This is basically, I'm on Facebook. I have a page that's called Planet of the Puppets. And I also have an Etsy store called Planet of the Puppets, and I make a kit where you can buy the kit and make your own pop-up puppets. It makes a dozen, works out to about $3 a puppet. But what I really like, not only when kids do it, but when people who are speech pathologists use it, storytellers, doctors, nurses, or the right group of friends and the right bottle of wine to do a self-portrait evening. So it's a good way to go. So thank you, Max.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the Whimsitorium open to public, and would you give a personal tour? Because I think that I could talk to you for hours.
Well, thank you. And it's very small in here, so I have to be the one to give a personal tour because I'm the only one who's small enough in order to fit in here and get one or two other people in here as well. So if it was anybody taller than me, it just would not work. But basically, I do tours when I'm here. But if you have a puppet emergency, I have a Ring doorbell on my door. You can press that. It goes directly to my phone, and I will answer it. And if I'm in the market, which I usually am, up on the craft line, I'll come downstairs. And if you need me to meet you someplace else, something covert, like a dark alley with, I'll say, I'll bring out the puppets, and nobody will know. Nobody will know. We won't tell anyone.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to post your website in the chat.
Last question, Rob. Paul is asking if you still have a booth at the Pike Place Market.
I do, and because of the Parkinson's and the demands of also making the puppets as well as selling them, I am currently looking for an apprentice who would also be an assistant to help me with the manufacture of the puppets. But I will be doing Mondays and Thursdays on the market booth upstairs, and then I'm spending the rest of the time down here in my studio, which is accessible to the public as well. So I'll be selling on the tables here on days where it's not raining, and the rest of the time I'll be up at the market on Mondays and Thursdays. And it looks like Sharon's got her hand up.
Is there room for time for one more question?
One more, sure.
Okay. Rob, you did not tell us the name of your movie, and you didn't tell us who are the featured characters in your movie. Can you share that information, please?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's Pip and Squeak Go Viral is the name of the movie. And Pip and Squeak are these very old characters of mine from the 80s. They've had 5 of their own shows. And because of Parkinson's, I am passing these characters on to a young man named Matthew McGee. He's 30 years old. He's been coming to my theater when he was in diapers, and his father was has been one of my best friends. And Matthew, when he heard I had Parkinson's, asked, what's going to happen to Pip and Squeak? Not what's going to happen to me, but what's going to happen to Pip and Squeak. And so I said, well, let's hand him over to you and see what you do with them. And that's what the movie is about. It's basically about this transition from the old to the young again. So that's the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before we let you go, Rob, Luis Mendoza has asked you if you want to join them on April 27th. He's put something in the chat. So maybe you can join them at the Seattle Cultural Accessibility Consortium.
Tell Luis to just give me a call or message me or some such. And but yeah, that'll be the best way for me to do it. Or just stick around and I'll talk to him.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Rob. Pleasure to hear from you. Thank you. So our next speaker is Abha Sharma. Abha is a self-taught lip reader who was diagnosed with bilateral moderate to profound sensorineural hearing loss at the age of 13. Staunch support from her parents, especially her father, enabled her to achieve a PhD in biophysics. Abha is currently working on an anthology of personal essays that reveal her struggles and behavior, as well as expressing gratitude to people who enunciated sounds into her life. Abha has been recognized for her writings. She's also passionate about painting and crafting. You may have seen her paintings in our video as the event began today. Abha will talk to us today about reclaiming the artist within her. Welcome to our program, Abha.
Thank you, Nona. Thank you for having me here. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for me to share my feelings and over here how I reclaim the art that have always been with me throughout my life. So today I want to talk about, my title is Reclaiming the Artist in Me. And yeah, I want to start with a small introduction, which Nona has already given. I am Abha. I'm an artist by heart, but I trained to be a scientist professionally. And I have bilateral, moderate to profound sensorineural hearing loss. I wear 2 hearing aids. I wear them all the time now. I'm terrified without them, actually. But there was a time when I wore none or one, because although I struggled to hear since my childhood, my hearing loss was diagnosed only when I was 13. So today I just want to talk about some of my experiences, my art practices, and the circumstances that brought about the art back into my life. I grew up in India in a large middle-class family. Both my parents were educators and artists in their own right. My mother wrote Hindi poetry. My father was a visual artist, and he was also a published writer. And in fact, he was my first art teacher. Growing up, my parents made it very easy for me to develop and pursue various art practices. We had a great library of books. We had an art teacher. We had a music teacher. My sister and I learned classical Hindi music lessons. And yeah, languages are hard for me, but I speak and write both Hindi and English. Unaware of my hearing disability, I could never grasp the nuances of musical notes, but I love to sing. And as a child, I insisted on gluing my right ear to the radio so that I could figure out the lyrics. Comprehending lyrics was very hard, but pretending or making up words was easy, and I did it. But more than anything, I love to dance. And so finally, my mother was able to find a retired dance master who agreed to come home and teach me. And I learned Kathak and Kathakali, the dance classes and solo dance performance that I was able to do at my college were the highlight of my college and university years. So why then did I go to the sciences? My father actually advised me not to take the science subject, and my mother encouraged me to write. She thought I would be a good writer. But I made my own decision. I was only 13 in grade 9, and it was time to select the subject for your next 3 years of high school in India. It was considered smart to take up science. So I wanted to show that I'm smart. I love chemistry, biology, English. I thought I wanted to be a vet, and I had my younger brother. In truth, it was life-changing because a few months later, Mr. Kamble, my favorite teacher, who also taught us chemistry, suspected that I had hearing loss. And he thought that I did very well in closed lab spaces, but seemed to be lost in open classrooms. And soon enough, my father, looked up ENT specialist, and we found Dr. Charles Emmerich. He was an American missionary. He was very surprised to see how well I had managed for so long. He did recommend hearing aids, but with the following words: wear them, but sparingly, or you might get too used to them. At that time, there was no concept of special education classes or hearing strategies in India. And so for me, subconsciously, the quest while growing up was to wear or not to wear, and when to wear the hearing aids. So mostly I wore one or none, and I continued to lip read. In retrospect, was this good or bad? I'm not sure. How did I manage my childhood? And before the hearing loss was detected. Well, I was considered to be inattentive at home, but I was smart at school. I made a mental list of words and bartered colorful beads with my classmates in exchange for information that I missed hearing in school. High school was easier. My mother was very busy, but my father had retired and he entered my life in a big way. With his active involvement, encouragement, support, guidance, I was able to score the prestigious National Science Talent Scholarship of India. In fact, I got my PhD in biophysics only because of my father, but that's another whole story. My college and university years were made easy because my parents hired tutors who agreed to come home, and they were enunciated speakers. But yes, I was very blessed because for every academic degree that I pursued, I was blessed to make a good friend who would unconditionally help me with my list of words, the words that I'm mishearing or they sounded weird or strange to me. A little about my marriage and family. I met my husband during graduate school, and he was a senior colleague, and we married. And soon after, Raj left research to join oil and natural gas industry. And he was posted on the oil rigs in Bombay and Assam. And so that left me to do solo parenting of our two children. And of course, my parents were nearby, so that was very helpful. 40 years, and we're still together, musical notes and loud words too, definitely. We have two amazing villains, very compassionate, generous, and smart children, and Abhishek and Akanksha. And yes, like in Kodak, I have used my two children in many, many ways. In 2000, Raj and I decided to pursue the American dream, and so we traveled to Galveston in Texas. And I was a postdoc fellow, Raj was a visiting scientist. It was a very hard journey. We lived apart in separate countries, but we finally got our green cards after 7 long years. We moved to Fort Worth and joined the University of North Texas Health Science Center as research faculty. It was there that I realized that I needed better hearing aids for better communication with the students. I also discovered the Hearing Loss Association of America, which was a great boon to me because reading their magazine and meeting other people taught me many things about myself. I realized why I am happier washing dishes in the kitchen than sitting in a room full of people at a party. Overall, my working experiences have been far better in the US than in India. How did I reconnect with the arts? My mother passed away in early 2007, and I started to write in bits and pieces, but that was for myself. And then in 2012, I was laid off, my grant was over, and this was actually a blessing in disguise, because while I applied for a new job, I restarted my art practice with the easel and paints that my two children had gifted me. And I sold some pieces on Etsy. My daughter invited me to Washington and I accompanied her. And after a few months, I was hired as a research scientist in the Department of Bioengineering at the University of Washington. Encouraged, I also joined my daughter in her dance class and I learned Kathak from Chandrai Bhattacharya. It was for about 2.5 years. It was a lot of fun. We even performed some shows, but the long commute and the group classes made it very hard for me. And so I dropped out. At the university, Professor Pollack is a great mentor, and my scientific and writing skills have considerably enhanced. I lived in Edmond at the time, and so the long commute from Edmond to the university to beautiful scenery of Seattle gave me enough time to reflect on my life and wonder why and what I did and my behavior And so I began to write extensively. I also discovered a free writing class at the Edmonds Library. It was here that I met Christine Pinto. She was a very enunciated speaker, and I learned a lot and had classes. But once again, the group conversations and, when we provide critiques in a group setting was hard for me. And so I gave up the classes. I just wrote on my own at home, encouraged by my family and my little dog. I met Angelique Patterson at Hearing Loss Association of America picnic, and she's now a very dear friend. And she trusted me to translate her book into the Hindi version. And so Raj and I collaborated together, and we now have the book on Poti.com. Finally, in December 2021, I was awarded the GAP Award for my literary activities by the Artist Trust Fund after 2 earlier attempts. And this was very motivating for me. It was also a huge financial support because I am writing an anthology of essays based on my personal hearing loss experiences. And I hope to publish that soon and build a community where we can lean in and share our struggles without shame or fear. The process was gradual, but that is how I was able to reclaim the artist in me. And my art practices may have taken a backseat from time to time, but overall, they have enriched my life. They have kept me balanced, whole. I have been very joyous and positive only because of them. And they have been very therapeutic, especially my writing. They have brought me healing, and healing brings growth, of course. Employment was and is such a support, and I'm grateful for the GAP Award too. Thank you.
Thank you, Abha. That is an inspiring story of how you reclaim the artist within you. We have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience.
Okay.
Let me ask you, Abha, what is it that you're working on right now that you are enjoying? Whether it's painting or is it a series of essays?
Oh yeah, I'm enjoying my writing the essays. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just recently completed a personal essay writing course from the University of Washington. And so I have to rewrite all my essays because I now know so much more. So it's very exciting for me. Yeah.
Yes, I've read one of your essays where you talk about your friend who tells you to speak up. And that was a very, very touching essay.
Thank you. Thank you, Nana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very easy for us to pretend. Even now, I'm 65, but I could always pretend. I still go on sometimes, and I have to remind myself that, no, I need to ask my question. I need to bring awareness to the other person that if you want to speak to me and you want me to really respond to you, you have to speak in an enunciated manner. You have to tap me, you have to get my attention, and then I will be able to answer you properly. But yes, it's so easy to just, ignore and then go on with the conversation.
Yes, you learned very early how to cope with the beads, and by managing, you learned how to, cope with your hearing loss very early.
Yeah, actually, that was it was like an epiphany for me. I was going the bus, and I have always been very fascinated with beads, and even when we went Galveston, the Mardi Gras beads were really, like I was wondering, why do I feel so close to them? And so suddenly I realized that, oh, I used to be exchanging beads for information. And I confirmed it with my friend who we studied together, and she said, yeah, we used to wonder why you get beads and why do you like to study so much? It wasn't that I liked to study so much. I had my question to ask, and it wasn't very open to ask the teacher all the things. there were so many students in the class in India, and so it was easier to ask the friends, you know, a particular question that you want to ask. And so, yeah, I know how to battle these. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me here and for this great opportunity.
Our next speaker may need no introduction to some of you. King Khazm is a prominent figure in the hip hop community within Seattle and around the world. He is a multifaceted artist, a community organizer, a motivational speaker, and educator. His work to unify and empower the community is demonstrated through 25 years of music, art, and community service. He has received recognition from dignitaries such as Seattle Mayor Nichols and Washington State Governor Inslee, and has received numerous awards. We have a video introducing King Khazm, and then we will hear from him after that.
Sorry, just 1 second.
I like to just close my eyes sometimes and just listen. We're surrounded in a world of madness, it seems, and the flurry of activity builds anxiety. But the soundscapes helps to ease my mind, release the pressure. Life is my soundtrack, my inspiration. Our work with the 206 Zulu Nation is about building community, bringing people together, self-empowerment, self-determination. And really that's the essence of hip hop. It's about peace, unity, love, having fun, but also knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and just coming together in a very creative way, turning a negative into a positive. And that's what I really like about the next level. Being able to connect with so many people that share the same passions and aspirations, and to help them actualize their own God-given talents. You know, it's a universal language, a universal dance, art, culture, and it brings us together in a lot of ways. You know, this is my inspiration, hip hop.
No, you're on mute.
Welcome to our program, King Khazm.
Thank you so much.
Well, I see you've come indoors.
Indeed, there was a little bit noisy earlier. We had a renovation project going on in the studio, so I don't know where I'm going to be. I think I'm going to be right here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. I'd like to hear more from you. So I'll ask you some questions. If you tell me, if there's a topic that you would rather speak on right now. Otherwise, I would love to know how you channeled your visual art, your music, and hip hop to not only turn your life around, but to thrive as a successful entrepreneur, homeowner, world traveler. I don't know how you do all these things.
Well, that's a loaded question. I guess how I channeled it was just like you said, through the music, through production, through rhyming, through visual art. It's kind of been the through line through my life. It's always been there. I was in a car accident as a child. about 5 years old or so, and have grew up with a spinal cord injury, living basically in a wheelchair. And so for me, grew up with a lot of different challenges and art and music. I come from a musical background, a very artistic background with my family. And you know, those were the things that really kept me grounded and kept me moving forward in a positive direction, in a not so very positive environment. You know, growing up in South Seattle through the 80s and 90s, you know, music has really been one of the constants in my life, and being able to ground myself, being able to channel my energies in a creative way, being able to have a kind of a grounding, a very kind of a therapeutic platform, and you know, just always kept with it, whether it be through paintings or graffiti art or visual art or poetry, or later on music production, and even later on media production. Those are kind of the things that had just kind of kept me moving forward. I was very blessed and fortunate to really just, you know, to be able to, I mean, that's really what I've done since the beginning. I haven't really, you know, had a kind of a traditional 9-to-5 type job. I've been very fortunate to be able to pursue my passion, and you know, like you said, I've been able to do a lot of amazing things, travel the world, become a successful business owner. I also manage a nonprofit organization called 206 Zulu, which keeps me very busy, and as well as the music and the art.
When did you become involved with, I believe you do a lot of advocacy for disability, youth, and the arts. How, you know, when did you become involved with that?
Right. I don't think it was like a intentional thing to you know, to be a community organizer or an advocate on that level. It was more of just self-advocacy as a young man growing up, and advocating for myself and my peers, you know, in terms of space, access to space. You know, there was a thing called the Teen Dance Ordinance, and it was very challenging to host events, and have spaces, have access to venues and things like that. So, you know, being able to, we basically just kind of created alternative spaces, house parties, little warehouses, and non-traditional spaces, and turning them into venues. And so a lot of the advocacy was just through advocating for ourselves and our peers, you know, advocating for access, and in terms of you know, disability, and getting in spaces, and being able to access different resources. And I guess through a lens of hip hop, I began to become more aware, in terms of socially aware, and becoming more, I guess you could say, active in the world of organizing and activism, and you know, started getting more involved in different initiatives, and trying to you know, attack some of those greater societal challenges. And yeah, I later got involved with disability advocacy, and organizations like the Seattle Disability Commission, which I've served on for several years. The Here and Now Project, which is a nonprofit organization that I serve on the board with, that does a lot of really great support with paralysis and community support groups, doing a lot of amazing work in the Northwest community. And yeah, a lot of different advocacy for young people, for marginalized communities, I serve on the board of For Culture, which is a King County agency that that provides grants and resources to different artists and different heritage and cultural entities. And yeah, I love to create with art. I love to manifest, and I love to help do everything that I can to make positive change. You know, we're all enduring so much in this world, and we all have our unique challenges and our unique things that we're dealing with, you know, and how can we come together and address things in a more holistic view and really try to be the change we want to see.
I believe you also manage a 110-year-old historic community venue. How is that space used?
It's used widely. It's a space called Washington Hall, which is right there in the Central District on 12th and Fur, and it is a very beautiful century-plus-year-old building. Originally created by the Danish Brotherhood. It was one of the first documented jazz performance spaces in Seattle during an era of redlining. And so a lot of historic folks have called Washington Hall home, from Billie Holiday, Ernestine Anderson, Jimi Hendrix, Cab Calloway, many artists, many speakers, many organizations, and many cultural groups have called Washington Hall home. And so, yeah, the organization that I'm involved with, 206 Zulu, and other organizations, we have, you know, renovated the space and are providing accessible spaces for communities to come in and to do their things, whether it be, you know, conferences or workshops or dance rehearsals or concerts. People get married there. There's all types of stuff that happen at Washington Hall. And we also host youth programs there as well. We have a media lab and a music recording studio and classroom spaces that we do all kinds of programs and classes for young people.
Wow. Well, before I turn it over for audience questions, would love to hear you. I believe you have a brand new album. So tell us quickly about that, and then I'll, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat or raise your hand.
Absolutely. This is my second solo album called Return of a Mad. I'm currently touring. I've traveled extensively through the Middle East and Europe for the last 2.5 months. I'm back in the Northwest, and I'm just traveling around the region and promoting this album. It's a lot more, I guess, less introspective than the last one, which was Diaries of a Mad. This is Return of a Mad, and it's doing really well. We've gotten a lot of support, especially with college radio. I believe it's in a little over 35 radio stations currently, getting tons and tons of support. And it's really exciting to be kind of back in the world, so to speak, in a semi post-pandemic world. And so being able to actually get out there and perform has been really invigorating, and just, you know, being able to have that shared experience and performing with people and connecting with people in person has been really amazing. So yeah, feel free to listen to it. It's on all the you know, streaming platforms and everything.
We will. I will, if there are any questions from the audience for King Khazm. We do have a short video of your music, which if we don't have any questions, I'd like to play.
I have a question.
Okay.
This is Sudeshna. Looks like you've traveled a lot. My question was, what's your favorite place that you've been to, and where you've connected with people, or some special moment that you've had in a particular place?
Oh, was so difficult. I'm gonna always say my favorite place is the last place that I visited, because everywhere is just such a unique and enriching experience. And I've been very blessed to travel through Central America, South. I think Brazil is a very, very beautiful place with beautiful people and culture. Through Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Japan, most recently France and UAE. I really couldn't give you an exact place, because I love so much the character and the history, and I love to connect with people. And it's cool because I'm able to not just connect with people through music, but also through advocacy and talking about sharing our stories about hip hop culture and kind of the unique history that hip hop has that unifies young people, from turning people from a negative to a positive, and kind of sharing our similar yet different histories, and really using it as a platform for organizing in the communities, and being able to sit down and connect with different communities, and like looking at how can we use the arts and hip hop culture as ways to do positive things in their respective communities. So yeah, I probably one of, especially as a wheelchair user, one of the most challenging things to do in life, logistically speaking. And of course, it's a whole nother subject about accessibility and traveling with airlines and ground transportation and hotels, and so challenging, but one of the most rewarding things in my life that I've done and that I continue to do, and fortunate to be able to do.
Well, Elizabeth has a question regarding just that. She is asking, what was it like traveling abroad? Were people helpful, receptive, or difficult when it comes to your disability?
Well, every place is a little different, and different stages. I think we're uniquely positioned because we have the ADA, and of course, we have a lot of work to do, which I think it's really time to start rolling up our sleeves and getting to next levels of what that can look like. But I think people are receptive. I think it's just a lot of it is just awareness, and a lot of it is creating resources and having that be really a priority for people to, I mean, some of the most helpful things aren't necessarily expensive. It's just kind of the awareness and being receptive and cognitive of like different people's needs, and something that can be very small can be really significant in terms of creating more accessibility. The UAE surprisingly was very accessible, but yeah, you have places that are also very ancient and hundreds and hundreds of years old, and it's hard to modernize in a lot of ways old cities, but there's also a lot of really ancient cities that have been able to successfully modernize themselves in ways. So I think it's just a matter of continuing the advocacy and continuing to push that as a priority.
Well, thank you so much. Really enjoyed hearing from you about everything you do and your travels. We are going to move to a flash poll now. Thank you, King Khazm.
Thank you.
Great. I'm going to start the poll. This poll was initiated by Elizabeth, who's going to be our next speaker. So I'll give you 30 seconds to just look at the 3 questions that we have. And then if you don't mind just letting us know. Can you all see the poll?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in like 5 seconds. All right, so we have some answers. The first question, do you know someone with a disability? Well, 100% said yes. Do you have a disability? A little more than half people, half audience members said yes, they do. None of them were not sure, so it was either yes or no. And the last question, if you have a disability, is it visible or invisible? So we have more non-apparent than apparent, and that's something I think that's important to keep in mind when we meet people, talk to people, engage with people. I'm going to end the poll now, and as always, I'll share the results in a follow-up email. Thank you. Great. You're on mute, Nona.
Next, we have Elizabeth Ralston. Elizabeth is a consultant working at the intersection of community health, nonprofits, and accessibility. Her expertise is in maximizing organizations' success through accessibility, program development, and strategic communications. Elizabeth is the founder of the Seattle Cultural Accessibility Consortium, a grassroots effort to connect arts and cultural organizations with information and resources to improve accessibility for people of all abilities. As a deaf woman who uses cochlear implants to hear, Elizabeth faces accessibility challenges every single day. And as a parent of 2 children with disabilities, she has had to advocate for her children's success, children's access needs, particularly in their education. Elizabeth has really helped me with this event. She introduced me to several people, including King Khazm, and has helped with many different questions. Thank you for all your help, Elizabeth. I have heard from you the phrase, nothing about us without us. So here we are looking forward to hearing from you. Welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. My name is Elizabeth Ralston, and I am a white woman with wavy silver hair. I'm wearing a black shirt with a blurred out background and a red beaded necklace that I picked up from my travels in Africa. I use she, her pronouns. So this is a tough act to follow, these amazing 3 artists. And while I'm not a visual artist or a theater artist myself, I am a writer. I have written lots and lots of articles and blogs and published stuff over the years. And before I got busy with my kids, I did stained glass. And I made this stained glass piece that I wanted to share with you all. It's a stained glass piece of a ware with different colors, black tail, an aqua body, a dark blue fin, and a red mouth. So I'm very proud of this piece, and I'm really impressed with all of you, and I can relate to so much of what you all have said, especially Abha, because we both have a hearing loss. I was born deaf. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself, but I related so much to her struggles when she was in school, really having to run and elbow people out of the way to get to a seat in the front so that I could lip read the teacher. And if the teacher ever faced the board, I was in poor shape. So I had a lot of educating to do throughout my education. So who am I? I am a consultant, as Lorna said, and I'm the founder of the Seattle Cultural Accessibility Consortium. I'm really passionate about helping the arts sector and other organizations improve accessibility for people of all abilities. And I learned this as a lifelong patron of the arts, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Malawi, and you can see the Malawian flag. It's a black, red, and green striped flag with a half red sun. I'm the proud mom of two teenagers who are also deaf like myself. My deafness, unlike Abha, was genetic. And it's a very rare genetic, well, it's actually not that rare. 1 in 100 people actually is the carrier of this particular gene that I have. I love the outdoors, reading, movies, and spending time with friends and family. And here you can see there's a picture of me with my brothers. They all look like the Beatles with their mullet haircuts. And from age 1 until age 15, we had to get our picture taken every Thanksgiving. And so the pictures got progressively worse and worse the older we got. So I picked the cutest one. I hope you enjoy that. So why does accessibility matter? We've heard from these amazing artists, and they've each talked about their own work and how they use their disability as a positive influence on their art. But why does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an arts patron, and that one of the reasons I came into this work is I realized the art were inaccessible for people like me. When I go to the theater or a museum to see shows, I need captioning, for example. I don't sign. But I really love going to museums, and here you can see one of my most favorite pictures, paintings, is the girl with the pearl earring. And as you can see in this painting, she's got this whimsical smile on her face, and she's wearing a blue turban and a long gold scarf hanging from her head, and she's wearing a gold dress with a white collar, and she's got that pearl earring, of course. Very whimsical looking. You just you wonder what is she thinking, and you really get drawn into that painting and wondering what the artist was thinking as he was painting this. So, how did you all feel when I was showing you this piece of art? You don't have to use emoticons or anything like that. You can just put in the chat some words or sentences about what you were feeling. It was blurry, you couldn't see it. That's right. Anybody else? What kind of feelings did it provoke in you as I was talking about this painting? Confusion. You were sad that you couldn't follow what you were saying. Right. Exactly. So this is the point I'm making, is you want to see that picture. Exactly. You want to see it, but it was blurry, and you really want to have access to this amazing piece of art. And so that's what accessibility is all about. Can everyone access what you are presenting? Is everyone frustrated? Is everyone happy? You have to understand your audience and know what their needs are. And we live in an ableist society because society was made for able-bodied people. So we assume that when we give presentations or when we create art, that everyone is going to be able to hear or see or participate in some way. So moving on. So defining accessibility, I wanted to go a little bit deeper into this because we touched upon it in what the three artists were saying. But if something is accessible, it's easy to reach, enter, speak with, or use. So King talked a lot about alternative, what was the phrase to use? Alternative spaces. So being able to get into a space that could accommodate a wheelchair, a cane, or any other type of equipment. And when you think about universal design, which means designing things so that it's for the benefit of everyone. So if something is inaccessible, there are barriers to information and knowledge. Access is cut off. So for example, in education or even in the arts, if someone with a hearing loss, like myself, is unable to hear well enough to hear a teacher speaking or an actor speaking, that is going to be inaccessible for me. I think somebody's cooking in my house, so the fire alarm is going off. I apologize. All right, so I want to talk about ableism. Ableism is discrimination or prejudice against people with disabilities. It assigns inferior worth to people with disabilities. It devalues and limits their potential. And I want to give a couple of examples of that because I think it's really important to understand how ableism can be a barrier to providing accessibility. For example, the lack of representation of people with disabilities in the media is present in the language that we use. Crazy, lame, retarded, are you deaf? Hushing children when they ask questions. If they see something that doesn't look like themselves, for example, they start asking questions, but they're often shut for that. Disabled people earn less income than those without disability. It's because of society's preconceptions of how a disabled person is able to get the job done. When in fact, disabled people are some of the best workers around, and they represent a billion-dollar industry. And assuming instead of asking what someone needs is another example. Pushing a wheelchair or leaning against a wheelchair. Someone who uses a wheelchair, this is what they are living in, and so this is their own personal space. And so it's really important to really respect someone else's personal space and ask questions and be curious and open and leaning into your discomfort about what you see in front of you that might not quite be the same as you. So if we want to create an access culture, I'm going to be wrapping up here because I know I have to be brief. I heard something in a recent panel that King was on actually about an access check-in. So when you are meeting with people or hiring people or just getting to know people, you want to have an access check-in with them, especially when you're making presentations, for example. Are all of your access needs met? And I think that's really important when you are working with artists with disabilities to make sure that their access needs are met. So you meet the artist where they are and find out from them what they need to be successful, how you can support them. Design accessible processes for artists like their access check-in. For example, relaxed performance rehearsal spaces for performances. Some people who are disabled need different break times and they need different things during a rehearsal process. So creating an intentional space for people to take care of themselves is super important. Engage people with disabilities as advisors, staff, volunteers, board members. Really important, as Nona said, nothing about us without us. If you are designing a space, if you are designing an exhibit, if you are designing a play or a musical, think about the audience that you want to reach and involve them in that design process. Consider intersectionality. So a person with a disability, when you layer stuff on top of that, it's going to make access that much harder. For me, as a white woman with a disability, my access may be a little bit easier than someone who is Black and has a disability. or someone who's Black and has other types of access needs on top of that. Involve artists from the very beginning of the design process, as I mentioned earlier. If you hire artists or they are part of your board or the volunteers, involve them from the very beginning so that they have a say in the way something is produced or turns out. So here you have the most beautiful picture of the girl with the pearl earring, and now you can see the picture in all its glory. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have, and you can contact me at my website or through my Gmail address. And please do feel free to come up to the consortium connection event that we're having on the 27th, and also any of our workshops that we have throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I loved what you said about access check-in. I think, you know, I'm happy to learn new things. Thank you, because, you know, this is what this event is about, to bring out, you know, all accessibility issues that we can help with. And you know, I like what you said about in spaces that involve people right at the start in the design phase, so that we have better spaces, more accessible spaces. I'm going to turn it over to the audience for questions. You can put it in the chat. Anybody who wants to just unmute and ask a question, please do.
I just wanted to say that I attempted, Elizabeth, to sign in for your thing on the 27th, and with Parkinson's, I missed the letters on the keyboard frequently. They go the wrong way, and it's got a time limit on it. So when I got to almost having it all completely filled out, it ran out on me. So I just want to let you know, some of it don't move as quick as the others, and the time limit on the thing was kind of a little daunting. But I'll fill it out later.
I can help you with that, so I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So in the last 2 years, now that we've had a lot of Zoom sessions, Zoom meetings going on, what advice can you give people who are doing Zoom meetings in terms of creating more access?
That's a great question. That's one of the things I actually present a lot about, is how to create accessible virtual meetings. And there's a lot you can do to prepare people. One of the things is to do an access check-in and prepare people for what to expect. An agenda, an outline, and really build in lots of breaks. And if people need to keep the camera off, that's fine. It's always better so that you can see people and interact and react. But some people with invisible disabilities in particular need to keep the camera off because the sensory overload is just too much. What other recommendations? If you are using videos, please make sure they're captioned. That's really helpful. And audio description is also very welcome as well. It's a way of helping blind or low vision people understand the action that's happening in the video. And even when you're showing a painting, maybe describing that painting a little bit more. So those are a few examples.
Thank you.
Any questions for Elizabeth or any of the other presenters before we wrap up?
I just want to say I think everybody did a wonderful job, and I was a little intimidated when I came in, and I have nothing to worry about. You guys are great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, this was a great opportunity, and I really congratulate you all. I just realized that, yes, I did not describe myself because I didn't understand that that would also be necessary. So yeah, it would be very nice to have an access check-in where you know what you want to describe and how you're supposed to describe so that everybody can understand you and, you know about your disability also. Yeah.
And I know SCAC does a great job of hosting a lot of events. So we would be happy to share that event, Elizabeth, when we send out our follow-up email. So if you have something, and that's true for the other artists and speakers as well, if you want us to promote anything that you're working on right now, or any social media stuff, we would be happy to do that.
I think I wanted to say thank you to everyone. If there are no more questions, I'll wrap up by saying thank you to all for attending and participating in today's forum. Thank you especially to all our presenters. Thank you to our ASL interpreters. I have especially enjoyed putting together this event. I really appreciate your all being here. We would like to continue engaging with all of you in the audience, the presenters as well, with every step of our journey as we work towards making the East Side a more inclusive and vibrant cultural destination. We will send you a follow-up email with the recording and resources shared here today, but also make sure you subscribe to our newsletter for updates. Please register for our next Cultural Creates community event on structural racism in the arts, a lens on racist policies in the arts community. Sudeshna, would you please put that? Oh, I think you've already
One
put
step
the link.
ahead of you.
Yes, you are. Okay. For this event, I had several people who gave me their time and connected me to others. I want to thank them all for their help. I would like to thank my friend Miran Hoti, who actually got me started on this event by saying, let's do an event together. So Miran works for the Parkinson's Foundation, Northwest Parkinson's Foundation. Thank you, Miran. I would also like to thank the EastHUB team, Sudeshna, Bernardo, Venya, Rainey, and Jesse for all your help and support. As we conclude, we would like to thank sponsors, our wonderful sponsors, Facebook for their support of our Cultural Create community event series, Amazon for their ongoing support for arts and culture on the East Side, and Microsoft for who they made it possible for us to do all this work with their foundational support. If we have time for one short video as we say bye-bye and thank you to all of you.